Hello. Today I wanted to talk about one of the issues that I think is more pressing in society at large for now. In my previous talks, I've brought up elements of theology and elements of Christendom in general as it pertains to kind of society. There are two main points I wanted to get at in this video. And so the first point is getting out there and understanding what truth is. How do you govern what you're going to deem to be an acceptable truth or an unacceptable lie? When you're on the internet, you have the ability to access huge amounts of opinions from different people. And what I find all too often is that people will be taking on thoughts and concepts from different individuals, but they don't have a really meaningful way to sift them or to filter them through, distill them into a usable and coherent thought pattern or process. So what you end up with is ideas that sound good to them become part of their truth pillars, and ideas that they don't like just become byways, things that, that can't be true because blank. And the reality is that in order to sieve information, you have to come from a faith perspective. It doesn't matter where you end up, you come from faith. Whether you're an atheist or agnostic, you have a particular faith. You believe in certain truths, not because they're proved to you, but rather because they're things that you agree with and you take. So when we look at Christians, we can look at a similar start. There's a belief that comes, and in the scriptures we're told that belief is a belief that's given as a gift from God. So that very belief, that initial ability to believe in God and to believe in the only begotten Son of God, comes as a gift of, if you will, enlightenment. We term it as the gift of regeneration, and it's not always super obvious at first. But that's how the Christians would believe you come to believe. It's not of your own reason or your own validation or your own mental processes. But let's just start with that one. There is a God. Let's say you have come thus far. You understand that the universe doesn't come out of nothing. Nihilo ex nihilo. Nothing comes out of nothing. And out of nothing comes nothing. The understanding of this principle is core to the universe, understanding how all objects interact with each other. So when we accept this principle to be true, now we're looking at the follower principles. Accepting that God is true means that there is a good, there is a bad, there's a true, and there's an untrue. And so the reason this becomes valuable is in theology, the study of God, the study of the mind of God. We can find out those things which he has said are true and which things he has said are not true. And I can hear already any army of people who would like to object and say, well, you're using the Bible to determine these things, and isn't that written by humans, and isn't there error in that? And the reality is that those particular issues have been solved many, many years ago. And if you'd like to get into an argument over how we ended up with the canon of Scripture, it's completely off topic. It is not relevant to this conversation. The reality is that we have the Word of God that's passed down to us in the Bible. And if you disagree with that, I don't really care. It's not the subject here. The reality is that that is the case. And so then we take the truths that are established there from the one truth, which is there is a God, and he's revealed himself to us, those pillars, if you will. We then begin to generate momentum, or if you will, a tangent. We have a line of thinking, a trajectory. We have an angle. We have an attitude. All this enables us to point in a direction. When you have one point, you have no direction. In this, we have 2 points at the very least, and it gives us direction. And those 2 points eliminate certain options from being on the table, things that are not able to be actually true. And this is really important. The more you study the Bible and the more you get rid of the noise of the outside world. I don't mean friends and family. What I mean is the news and the media that are continually bombarding you with thought processes that are not your own. They don't belong to you. They're being put onto you, and you are invoking those spells on yourself. When you give your energy over to thinking about those things instead of simply studying the Bible and looking at the world around you and interpreting these two things together, you can end up in very strange areas. But if you stay true to the core, you understand that the Bible is a particular subset of rules, and it determines what things can and cannot be. Then when you look around, you look at the nature, you look at the stars and the heavens, they begin to make sense in a kind of different way from what maybe you've been taught. And it gives you the ability to very quickly understand what is true and cannot be true. And so when people will come to you and say, oh, did you know that there's a super secret cult of humans who are trying to run the world, and they're so powerful that they can do whatever they want and no one has any power to stop them? You know that this is false, because the Bible teaches that this is incorrect. So now you can go, okay, an element here may be true. There may be a group of people who are striving to enslave the rest of humanity, who are striving to destroy it. But it's not true that there's no one who can stop them, or that you're powerless to defend yourself against these people. In fact, quite the opposite is true. They are weak, they're fragile, they don't have the ability to reach inside your mind and steal your faith, which is their desire in the end. So then you can understand that that thought process, which is the beginning of doomerism, or becoming a doomer, you can quash that immediately. You go, that's just not true. Can't be true. And this enables you to sift through the internet in a much more helpful way. You can very quickly discard certain ideas and add others to your repertoire, understanding that they give you guidance and understanding. Then when you look at the world through these lenses, you have better tools, and as time goes on, your tools get better and better. But you're never going to be able to actually arrive at this sort of ability to sniff really quickly what's true and what's not true just based on understanding the reality of our realm if you're continually allowing yourself to be undermined, to be distracted, to be drawn aside by all these other elements. And that brings me to my second point that I want to make in this particular chat. And that is that as long as you're looking to the internet to give you information, as long as you're sitting there on YouTube looking for people such as myself or others who are going to lead you and help you to understand things, you're failing in your own right to take agency for yourself and go and look. I brought up several times to various people that if you go outside and you look at the stars, you may see something different than you expected. I look at the stars quite often. I almost never see exactly what I'm expecting to see. Night to night, day to day is different. And what that's caused me to realize is that what I've been told about the movement of the heavenly bodies is wrong. It's false. My own eyes tell me that it's not true. That enables me to understand one other area in which things are false. But as long as you're listening to what other people have to say and not witnessing with your own eyes, you're never going to be able to discern the truth from the false. And that's one of the points I want to make. I've discussed in other podcasts and other things about how people don't go online if they're a 10 out of 10 or level 10 in any given discipline. It's just not something that happens. You don't find a level 10 in any given craft or in any given element of life who ends up online as a content creator. In fact, you very seldom see anyone who's even a 5 or a 6. That being said, they're passable. Their work is all right. You see them do things and they can give okay advice. But you're never going to be able to model your life off of what those people are doing because they simply don't have it ironed out. If they did, they would understand that in order to be at the level that they claim to be would require them not to spend so much time online, whether that's reading other people's tweets, tweeting yourself, creating content, or doing any number of different things. And I can hear you levying the accusation back at me. Then why should I listen to you? Well, the reality is, you shouldn't listen to me in so much as me directing how you should live from day to day. What you should understand is the principles that I'm trying to give you here. I don't really live in the same world that most people live. I'm not subject to a lot of the things that a lot of people are subject. I was born into a family that does things a particular way. And I have mentors that are fantastic. And in their fantastic nature, They've given me an outlook that's completely separate from what the rest of the world has. Not because I'm better or smarter, simply because these resources have been given to me. And the very same mentors who built me to the place that I am now would not be caught dead online in almost any capacity. And that's exactly how I know that you can't learn from those kinds of people who are online, especially chronically. This isn't to say there's nothing to be gained by visiting online. There are things to be gained from checking out what other people have to say on YouTube and other platforms. But what you're going to gain is going to be very entry. By the nature of what it is, you're not going to be able to get to the higher levels of these concepts. And if all this sounds a little bit mystical or weird, or like I'm just beating around the bush and not actually saying what I want to say, it's because the reality is you need to find someone near you who understands these subjects, and you need to investigate with them. It's not only not my responsibility, but it's not my pleasure or my authorized responsibility, so to speak, to be able to teach all these things. Those who have come and visited me would understand firsthand the difference between seeing me in an online space and seeing me where I exist with my family. There's very little in common in those two things other than me being the person that I am. But I think there are very few people who are exactly themselves online as they are in person. I could only think of one that I've met that is that way. I think that's pretty obviously the Chad guy that we all know. And so in that, he's very unique. He's a unique person in the sphere. But all this, even so, is that the fact that if you are in contact with the internet sphere, as much as a lot of these people are, it does take away from your time to be able to get to the higher level of these different things. And then there's the other side of it, which is that in order to learn the higher levels, you need a much closer, personalized, nuanced instruction from these people than you can get from just watching videos online. In this, I encourage people to seek out the truth by using their pillars to understand what is going on. And kind of at the tail end of the whole thing is, right now, there's a lot of interesting things happening with the stars. It's something I watch a lot. And I think after you've been watching the stars for maybe a decade or 2 decades, it becomes a lot easier to really see what's going on. And when people talk about the movements of the heavenly bodies, it's really easy to disprove what they're trying to say about them or their narrative they're trying to spin around them. These things move and they change day to day, and it's really exciting to watch. To sum up, in order to tell what truth is, you have to start from a position of faith, believing one fundamental truth. The only fundamental truth that's any value is that God is real. And then the other fundamental truth that follows from a God of order and not a God of chaos is that he's revealed himself to us. And if a God is powerful enough to reveal himself, he's powerful enough to preserve his word. Ergo, we can trust what he has to say. Then we follow the logical conclusion. What he says is true, and anything that suggests otherwise is false. So we don't need to worry about all the different falsehoods in studying them. If we study the true article, we're going to be able to discern what is true and what is not. And then the second point, if you are obsessed with watching mentors online, you're never going to progress in the discipline to the level that you would like to be, no matter what the discipline is. You must go out and practice yourself. And you must find mentors who are in your life. And if you can't find those mentors, you need to think about how you can shape your life so that future generations will have access to that kind of information. And then thirdly, the bonus point, if you will, go look at the stars. If you're in an area where you can't see the stars, it's over. It's over for you. But if you can see the stars, go look at them, see what they are doing, and keep notes, track, find the names, recite the names, and then measure it against what you've been told. Don't drop a like. Do not comment. I don't read the comments. So if you have something to say that would enlighten other people, say it to the person next to you.